All right, welcome everyone. Java John here. You are tuned into an acoustic record on WFIT 89.5 FM, public radio for Brevard, and I've got a very special guest on the line with me tonight, Mr. Ted NEELEY.
Howdy, John. How are you?
Hey, Ted. How are you?
Fantastic, sir. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. I tell you what, it is great to hear your voice. Although I can't recall when the last time I heard your voice not singing.
Seldom does that happen.
It's been a long time since television in the 70s, I think.
There you go. Yeah.
For those out there that are listening that are not familiar with Ted's name, and I'm sure many of you are, Ted NEELEY is the star of the film Jesus Christ Superstar, and he's also starring in the touring production of Jesus Christ Superstar, reviving the role as you've done apparently numerous times over the years.
Enough that I should have it pretty well memorized by now.
You got it done. Not too many cheat sheets up there. You don't need.
Don't need them.
You don't need. That reminded me of a funny thing. Arlo Guthrie telling a story about watching Bruce Springsteen at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and sharing the stage with Bruce Springsteen. And Arlo says he can't hardly remember his lyrics half the time, and then he shares the stage with Bruce, who's got a guitar for every song and all these amps and all these monitors, and he looks up and he's got the what do they call the projectors, the prompters.
Yeah.
He says Bruce has got prompters. He can sing any song that he's got, any number of 600 songs at the drop of a hat. He says, I got to go home and memorize them before I go on tour.
It hits us sometimes, definitely.
He's a beautiful guy. We saw Arlo here a couple weeks ago at the King Center, which is where you're going to be.
That's true. Yes.
This coming Sunday, bringing Jesus Christ Superstar to the King Center.
Got two shows there, I think, that day.
It is. It's got an afternoon show and an evening show, and I'll tell you, there's a buzz. They say, "What's the buzz?" That's the buzz.
That is the buzz. Absolutely.
How does it feel to be out on the road with this touring company?
It's incredible. I've been doing it off and on for quite a while. And it never gets old. The audiences that come to see us, by and large, know the piece better than we do. So we have to be on our toes and make sure we don't make any mistakes. The feeling is always remarkable because it has such a wonderful element of spirituality for everybody who comes and sits down to watch. So no matter what age group you are, you're going to enjoy this piece.
Very nice. In refreshing myself with yourself online in the past few days, I've read a lot of reviews, and everybody just raves about the performance and your performance, and it also mentioned something about TED heads, and I hadn't heard of TED heads before. Apparently, there's a group that of loyal followers, shall we call them?
Well, it's something that has developed over the years, and they named themselves. Their words, not mine, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're dear friends. Most of them have seen the show so many times that, like I said, they know it better than we do. And no matter where we go, they're either right there in the city, or they'll come from miles around, and sometimes from other countries to see the show. There's always someone representing them, no matter where we are, and it's absolutely remarkable how they respond to everything we do.
Beautiful.
It's been something that they've, had in their space since the thing first began in the 70s, and then they pass it on to their children and so on, and then each time we go back to a city, they'll come and bring new friends who haven't seen the show, and it just keeps growing.
Wonderful. I know we watched again last night with my son, and I know he loves it. So.
How old is he?
He's 11.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And he appreciated it, you said?
Oh, he loves it. Well, he's named after Bob Dylan, and he's seen Bob.
So he knows what's going on.
And Arlo, he comes from a coffee house background,
That's remarkable. He's right in the middle of it then.
Yep, and he appreciates it, and he's very, very special. I did go on your website and I found your guest book, and I posted on the guest book that you would be chatting with me this evening.
That's great. So a lot of those folks then will certainly be listening. I
got a number of responses from them, and they're very excited, and they should be listening. So if you want to give them a shout out, now's the time.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody who's there and who is on the website, off the website, near the website, have anything to do with the website, I love you. I miss you. I hope I get to see you wherever we are. And especially if you're listening tonight, that makes you that much more special. Thank you, everybody.
Right on. It's pretty wild, isn't it, the whole internet and website phenomenon for those of us who didn't have that 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's an amazing way to communicate.
It is. It's remarkable because the people who go on, by and large, are such wonderful, gentle, warm people, and new people will come on and suddenly they find a whole group of new friends with whom they can communicate with this certainly in common, but then they just become friends in general because this introduces them. And it started originally in the 70s when we would do the show and I would talk to people after the show, and it's been something we've continued ever since. So wonderful friendships have been formed as a result of that.
Very cool. As I was doing research, looking throughout your career, I noticed a little something on your website and a few other places about a group in 1966 called the Teddy Neeley Five. Can you tell us a little bit about the Teddy Neeley Five?
I think what you just did was probably the best way to describe it. You stumbled on the name, the Telly Neeley, whatever. That's basically what we were, the unknown band, so to speak. We played all over the country, mostly in nightclubs and bars, and we even did Vegas, and we did all of those television shows that were on at the time, the Smothers Brothers.
Cool.
and the Andy Williams show, and all of the things that were done that were then called variety television shows, and that's what kept us, out there so that the market could see what we did. And so consequently, when I did have the pleasure of being able to go into the show Hair, a lot of those people came to see the show because they'd seen all of those productions that we'd done in various parts of the country. And then another consequence was that Tommy Smothers of the Smothers Brothers was one of the producers of Hair. So it was all joined together. And my experience in theater with Hair, being the first one with the magnificent director Tom O'Horgan and James Rado and Jerome Ragney and Galt McDermott who wrote it, it's about to open new now in New York. And we're all really excited about that possibility. So,
wow.
I've just been somebody who's been extremely lucky, John, because I in the right place at the right time, and when they were looking for somebody who could scream high notes, and I kind of fit the bill for that. So,
yes, you do.
Virtuosity has followed me ever since.
Very nice. Hey, can I ask you a little bit about the Teddy Neeley Five, though, as far as the inspiration to start the band? Did that come out of the whole Beatles scene and that, or did you go?
Well, actually, the coincidence of that whole thing was, we were a band when we were in school. In fact, we started playing when we were kids and just for fun around town, in our hometown. And then since we were the only band in town, we got hired for all their events. So by the time we graduated from high school, we'd been together for about 8 years. And so we just went on the road for the summer with the idea of going back to Texas University in the fall for the college. And we worked our way from Texas out to California and never went back. So, and then when we finally were able to get this album deal put together on Capitol Records, our release for our Unknown Now album was the same week that the Beatles' first album came out on the same label. So we still to this day don't understand why they worked with those people who have no talent. You guys like the Beatles, they don't ever write any songs. They don't have any kind of creativity at all, and they got all the sales and we did, and we don't understand, John. Anyway, we were not destined to be a successful rock and roll band. We were just a bunch of musicians that were traveling and having a wonderful time.
And that's okay, huh?
You betcha.
Speaking of the Hair,
yes.
Also during I guess it's from like about 1969, I'm guessing, to 1974. You portrayed Tommy for a stage performance of the Who's rock opera.
Yeah.
You portrayed Claude in Hair.
Yes.
And you portrayed Billy Shears.
exactly. Thank you very much for knowing all of that. I appreciate that.
I'm tickled. That tickles me that you got to play all those roles.
Can you talk about luck there? I mean, think about that. There were 4 major productions of albums that were concept albums.
Right.
And I got to be in all 4 of them.
And you got to be in them all of them. And there's a bit of luck there, but I'm also sure that there's a whole handful of talent thrown in there too.
Yeah, there was a lot of talent in the show. Yeah, and I was there too.
Yeah, stop that. So, but now I wanted to ask you about the Billy Shears, the Sergeant Pepper role.
Yeah.
Was that what later developed into the motion picture, or was this a complete different performance, a different production?
It was certainly the genesis
for
the motion picture. Same producer, Robert Stigwood.
Oh, it was Stigwood.
Who was the producer of the Bee Gees and
right.
Eric Clapton at the time.
And Yvonne.
Same producer. And basically the production that we did of it live as a stage performance was an experiment to see if it would work without the Beatles doing it.
Nice.
They were very, very concerned about whether or not this could happen with the success of Jesus Christ Superstar. They thought they would give it a try, concept album, so to speak, and
sure.
certainly all that magnificent music that the Beatles had in that
sure.
album. So they wanted to give it a shot, and they all worked with us diligently to make sure that we could do it the way they perceived it, and it was a wonderful experience.
Nice.
And then once that did quite well, they decided to start developing the project as a film. So we had a little bit of help in there from our friends to get that baby together, and I'm really proud for the connection.
Very cool. I like that. Very nice. Yeah, I was talking to my wife today about the whole Stigwood and Clapton, Yvonne Elliman, the Jesus Christ Superstar, and much more. How they all kind of Bee Gees, Saturday Night Fever, how they all.
It was amazing how that all had a connection
yeah.
and how it all happened around that same time. And it was all spurred on, obviously, by the success of Superstar being the very first rock opera that was staged. Obviously, Tommy was the first rock opera written,
right.
but the first one staged, obviously, was Superstar. And with one happening, that certainly made the others have some sort of credibility, and they all gave it a shot, and they all felt some modicum of success, and that made everybody really happy. And then for me to be able to skate along and be involved in all of them was just remarkable.
Well, out of those roles, excluding the Jesus Christ Superstar role, which one do you think you enjoyed the most out of Tommy, Billy, Sgt. Pepper, and Hair?
It would have to be Hair,
yeah.
because I spent the longest time in that, and it was the first one for me.
Yeah.
And just like your first experience in life, it always seems to be that one that sticks in your mind the most.
Right.
That was my first theatrical experience, as well as my first experience in a Broadway production.
On Broadway.
And they call them Broadway productions, but these are certainly not Broadway shows. They're rock. They're
right.
concerts that are staged with sets, lights, props, and the works. And certainly since that time, all of the people who do rock concerts have their magnificent productions as well. So it was remarkable, especially with Hair. And I think with all of these that have happened since, that none of them probably would have had an opportunity had it not been for the success of Hair, because Hair was the first production to bring rock music into that medium, the theatrical medium.
Well,
so it was a wonderful experience for me, an incredible learning experience, because I had not been involved in theater at all before that time. And then to have the opportunity to work with such an amazing group of people and work for 3 years continuously under the tutelage of a director like Tom Morgan was just education on the spot.
I was 9 years old when Hair made the scene, and but I can remember vividly. I remember it being everywhere. Yeah, everywhere except for where I was.
Yeah, I mean, it had a ton of hit records.
Yeah, hit records. I mean, the Time magazine, Life magazine, television productions. There was everywhere.
It was a phenomenon
because
it was, as I said, the first one to introduce rock music to that particular theatrical medium.
Right.
And because of the subject matter and because of the timelessness of that subject matter, the fact that we were in the middle of the Vietnam War, and it was basically we were performing on stage what was going on in the streets.
Right.
So we were synonymous with that which was being related to at the time, and in most places protested about. Therefore, people could come into the theater and feel comfortable in their arena and hear songs that they loved and feel that element of celebration of what was going on at the time. And we're in that place again now.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, you know, because then we were coming out of the Vietnam War, and now we're trying desperately to get out of another one.
Right.
You know? So same war, basically, just in a different part of the world and much bigger artillery.
Yeah. Yep. It seems like many similar circumstances these days.
Yeah. And that's part and parcel, I believe, the reason for the success of Superstar now is that when times like these occur, people just generally look to their spiritual connection, and this show gives them a chance to celebrate that as well.
Very true. In the Broadway production of Hair, did you share the stage with Diane Keaton in that one?
No, we were in different productions at the same time.
All right.
Yeah, when she was in the New York production, I was in the Los Angeles production. I wish, certainly looking back, I'd have had that pleasure because she's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And I was thinking about these roles, and then a question came to me. Do you think that there are any other rock and roll roles or personas that you would have liked to or still like to portray?
Well, you know, honestly, John, I've never been one to think, I really want to do this.
Right.
I really want to do that. I have honestly been in a position where the only thing that I really had a desire or a plan to do was to play drums in a band and sing rock and roll songs, you know. And I got this opportunity, and then one led to another, to another, to another. And probably one of the reasons why I've been doing Superstar as long as I have is that I love this piece so much, and people keep asking me to be involved in new projects, new productions, of the same project. I have projects of my own that have been developed that are on hold right now. They have been on hold for 3 years the whole time I've been out on this one. So when this one runs its course, hopefully we'll jump into those. But I've never sat down and thought, well, let's see, what would I like to do next?
Right.
You know, I've never been a guy to do that. I'm lucky that I get to do what I get to do, and I'm so happy doing this one. I'd be happy to just keep doing this as long as it works.
Cool. When I was, again, still researching and reading a little bit about you and talking about new roles and new projects, I read something about Rasputin. Is that something that you're still working on, or is that something that's already passed?
Yes, no, it's definitely the next one up, if you will. I belong to a wonderful theater group called Rubicon Theater Company.
Yes.
It's based in Ventura, California, which is in Southern California, right between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles.
Right.
And we've been doing productions out there now for 10 years. And for the last 3 years, we have had Rasputin on the schedule to actually create it and perform it and produce it there. And it's been ready to go for 3 years, and I've had to keep pushing it back for the success of Superstar. And I couldn't be happier that Superstar is happening. So whenever this particular production runs its course, then hopefully we'll be able to jump into a production of Rasputin.
Is there a longer title for that?
No, that's it.
That's it, just Rasputin?
Yeah, and the subject matter, it's based upon the fall of the Romanov dynasty in Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution, and the elements that caused the fall of that dynasty, and it focuses primarily on the relationship between Rasputin and the young boy Alexei, son of the Tsar. Alexei would have become the Tsar had the family survived the Bolshevik Revolution. And it has so much material. It's a triple CD. So we've already recorded it, and we're ready to go whenever we're ready to do the show. And when I say rich material, once we started the research to develop this and put it into some sort of presentational form, the biggest problem we had was finding out which material we should or shouldn't use, because every single character that we would discover, you could do a whole production on just the one character.
Right.
Just amazing material, and it is certainly a marquee value piece because people know the historical elements behind that magnificent family and that period of time in the world, and certainly about Rasputin the Mad Monk.
And so this is obviously then musical.
Yes, and it's just like the style, like Superstar. It is not a dialogue piece. It is a song through, if you will, or an opera, however you'd like to categorize it.
Right.
It's all music, and the story is told through the lyrics of the songs.
How large would the characters, will the cast be?
Well, based upon where we do it, it's not a huge cast,
Right.
but just like Superstar, Superstar has been done from, say, 25 characters up to 45 characters, based upon where you're going and how large the venues are, and,
Right.
and how much you want to do with it. So ours is designed to be streamlined so that we can travel like Superstar does, and we can adjust to the sizes of the facilities. Once we have the central characters, then everybody else comes and goes as they wish to come and go. We'd always like to have everybody out there at all times.
Sure.
Whenever you get the venue that's large enough to let that happen. But what we do in Superstars, we have a traveling company of roughly 50 people with the cast, crew, and the band. And on stage, you'll see 27 to 30 people at all times.
Right. And then so you have a house band, and then also use orchestra on location?
Well, we do. It's becoming more and more difficult to use orchestras simply because the logistics of getting them in the theater, and or you certainly cannot travel with one.
Right.
So when we're fortunate enough to find a city that has a pre-existing orchestra that has the accommodation, we absolutely in a second. But most of the time we are with our traveling band. So that is, in essence, a rock and roll band with a whole bunch of singers.
Right on. We recently saw a production. There's a school here. They call it a school of choice, and it's an art-based school. It's a junior high school / high school, and these kids put on Tommy.
Oh.
And they used their band, and they used one of the high school rock and roll bands. So they had a band in the pit, and they used I'll tell you what, this was one of the finest live productions that I had ever seen. It was amazing. Everything in the thing was high school, except for the kid that played the young Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The kids did the whole thing, and it was amazing.
Well, see, that's one of the great things about these particular projects is that they can work no matter who does them.
Right.
I have seen Superstar done in junior high schools and even in kindergartens with the children, sitting on the floor and singing the songs.
Right.
And that's the great thing about, like I say, Tommy and Superstar and Sgt. Pepper, that is the fact that the songs are so singable, no matter who you are and what age group you hail from, it all works.
Yeah. And everybody loves them, and everybody knows them pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was chatting today with a friend of mine, and he, and I said, I would hope that maybe they would consider doing the Jesus Christ Superstar at that school sometime, because I'm sure they could do a fine job.
Well, it's a great piece to do. I'm telling you. And I in all my travels for over the years, I'm constantly running into cities that have done the same thing, and oftentimes the entire local company will come, and see the show, and sometimes we're fortunate enough even to have some of them in it.
Nice. Speaking of the company getting out and seeing shows, a couple weeks back we had the pleasure of seeing the Spamalot performance.
Was it nuts or what?
It's just, my cousin took me in 1975, and I was spending time in Los Angeles with my relatives, and he took me to the world premiere of the Holy Grail in LA, and I'll tell you what, there's a few things that shaped this life. Okay, it was going to see Jesus Christ Superstar about a half a dozen times in the theaters in 1973 ish.
My goodness.
Going to see Billy Jack as many times in the theaters, and then a couple years later, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So this is what shaped my life. Okay.
Believe me, I understand, and I can certainly relate to that because I certainly saw all of those pieces at one time or another. Billy Jack was very instrumental as well because of the subject matter of that. So I understand completely, and the great thing is the fact that it reaches so many people so deeply and makes an impression, something that you're going to remember.
Yes.
And that's, after all, what it's all about. That's what theater's supposed to be, a communication form for everybody. And you mentioned going to see Spamalot.
Yes.
What city did you see it in?
Right here in Melbourne.
Okay, then a friend of mine is in the pit who plays drums for the band.
Oh, yeah?
Band. Yeah, Paul Hanna was our drummer on the Superstar tour for our first 2 years, and then he got the opportunity to go off and do Spamalot. So he's out there bashing away.
Nice. And Richard Chamberlain was...
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was truly awesome. I was very tickled, and it was really funny because at one point during the performance, they would do these offhanded remarks sometimes, and some of them pertain to local. They would try and throw in a local flavor in a lot of the cities. But there was one that they didn't have, because we've seen this twice. My wife and I, we saw it in Orlando last year, and they made a reference to Dr. Kildare, and I about fell out the chair because I completely forgot that he was Dr. Kildare.
That's right, he was Kildare, and he did a ton of theater after that particular show went off the air.
Yeah,
and some really magnificent work. He's a wonderful person.
I was certainly impressed and have a newfound respect for the man, because he had a lot of energy, and he sang quite well, which I didn't know that he would do.
Yes,
and,
extremely talented
and funny.
Yes, good sense of comic timing,
and still good looking too. So there, and those words don't flow from my mouth easily.
Oh, bless your heart. Yeah, well, we do what we can with the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I hear that.
Mm-hmm.
We do too. That's why. So I sit behind this mic instead of.
A wise man, wise choice.
Okay, now, again, reading. Somebody needs to do a book about you. That would help me a lot, because I would read that. That's what I read. I read biographies, and I read stuff, rock and roll biographies and 60s pieces. That's just where my head's at.
A lot of rich information has come out of that time, huh?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yes, it has.
I mean, you talk about Bob Dylan a while ago. My goodness, look at the wealth of material.
Oh, man. And
he just put out another one.
Yeah.
A brand new one.
Looking forward to it.
Good Lord, it's just
And
amazing.
how many times did it seem, just when he was, quote unquote, dried up, did he come back stronger?
There you go.
When he hit the road with that Time, back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Time, I can't think of the title of the album now, but that first big, quote unquote, comeback album, what a sound. I guess Daniel Lanois produced it.
Yeah.
And
the thing about it is, he has such a base in folk music, and he pretty much invented folk rock.
Right.
But he continues to change and adapt with times. But you still have that common denominator that it's Bob.
Yes.
No question, that it's Bob.
And some people can't get over the hump, though. The little change in the sound and the little change in his voice, and I just think it's beautiful.
Hey, we have to grow.
I love it.
Things, and he's doing what he's doing best.
And this past summer, I had the pleasure of seeing Jacob on his first solo tour, one of the opening dates.
Isn't he wonderful?
And he is amazing. I'm telling you, this one night in Orlando in this small club, I basically had the opportunity to rest my elbows on the stage and take pictures of him.
How incredible.
And I swore there were times when I felt like I was looking at Bob in 1966, the way he was wearing his fedora, and people there that follow Jacob were saying that he was extremely loose and talkative, which he is not very often on stage.
Yeah.
Which sounds like his dad.
Yeah.
But he was just cracking jokes and messing with the bar and the people in the audience and the young ones and the old ones, and it was beautiful. I swear, to me, that's what it seemed like. So I think the best of Bob rubbed off on him, and then he's thrown in his own. And
look at that. We've been talking about following in someone's footsteps. I mean, what a challenge to even open his mouth.
Oh, sure.
With a father who's that tremendously successful, and he did it, and he does it so well.
Yes. And that's something that really, that's something that intrigues me, and is something I seek out. Is I like to hear the offspring of my rock and roll heroes and folk heroes.
Yeah.
And there is a bunch of them out there that is doing a fine job.
Yeah.
I am very impressed with Sean Lennon.
Uh-huh.
And
perfect example. Yes.
There is a record I was telling someone about today by a group called I've been playing some of them on the show, called Folk Uke. I'm going to make sure I pronounce the words correctly there.
I understand.
The group is Folk.
It obviously was a stretch, but
Uke.
they got there.
Have you heard of them?
No, I've not.
Folk Uke is...
Do they play ukuleles?
I believe they have a ukulele involved. It's mostly acoustical. It's mostly acoustic guitar, I think some mandolin, ukulele. And this is Arlo Guthrie's daughter and Willie Nelson's daughter.
Oh, really?
And it is just a beautiful mix. And this debut record, Arlo and Willie both stepped in and did a little picking and a little bit of background harmonies. And but these girls have such a wonderful tone and such a vicious sense of humor that there's 2 or 3 tracks on the thing that I couldn't repeat the titles of, yet alone play them on the air. But they're sang like these beautiful child ballads, you know.
My goodness, that's great.
You have to look them up because they're a lot of fun.
So then that makes the cycle complete then from Hair, because there was a song in the middle of Hair, which I won't throw out the title. Anybody who's listening, I'm sure will know exactly what I'm talking about. It had every reference that you can't use, sort of a George Carlin-esque trip, if you will.
Yes.
And it's this beautiful little lullaby song.
Yes.
Sung by the one character in the piece that was the innocent.
Right.
So he was discovering all these new words and proud of the fact he could understand what they meant.
I forgot all about that. So, yes, getting back to looking over your credits over the past 20, 30 years, there are a number of other things that I found interesting for me. Performing and or working with Nigel Olsson, Tina Turner, Ray Charles, Bo Diddley, and Keith Carradine on the I'm Easy album. Were you on that single or just on the album on that single?
Well, it's interesting how many people who are well known today came out of that experience of being in Hair. So many of the people that I worked with, and then they became successful, thank goodness, were all part of the choruses, the members, the tribes, if you will, of Hair.
Was Keith in that?
Yeah, Keith was in Hair.
Ah.
And, you think about that, and again, were it not for Hair, not only the other shows, but a ton of people that we accept these days as successful artists started in that particular show, got their first opportunity.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It wasn't that I was some outrageously talented guy. I just happened to be hanging around in the tribe, so to speak, and jumped at the opportunity to doodah with anybody who would allow me.
When you took up the role of Jesus, had you obviously or probably already been familiar with the original recording?
Oh yeah, that's how I learned it. All of we who were in the first stage production and certainly in the film, that was our Bible, if you will, the Brown Bible, that first album that came out. That's what was the phenomena that made it as successful, at least to the listening audience, as it became, and gave them purpose to then try to do it as a live production. And that was what we used as our guide to learn everything. And I stole every lick I possibly could from Ian Gillan, literally. And for quite a long time after that, people would come up and say, "Hey, Ian, that was great, buddy. Would you sign this for us?" And I would explain, I'm not. And it finally got to be a lot easier just to say, "Thank you very much, love, Ian."
Love Ian. That's funny. I had the pleasure of chatting with Ian a couple years ago, too. And
he's great.
What a pleasant, very nice, funny man who has a brand new recording out now.
Yeah.
And it is very special, very, very different for Ian. He's got a lot of soul and blues going on in this new recording of his.
Isn't it great to see the growth and the change and, and the depth? It just, because someone with that kind of talent, you can't hold back. And they'll do whatever they do, and they'll come back with something new, and then they create a whole new style, and it's just remarkable that he's still doing it, and he's wonderful.
Oh, yeah. And his band, he invited us over to Orlando to see the Deep Purple, and I have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bands, nearly everybody that I could ever want. There's a few that I had never seen, and Deep Purple was one of them. And I tell you what, 2 years ago, they were on fire. And he kicks off his shoes and he gets out there and he just goes crazy. And there may have been one missed note in the whole performance. It was just amazing and very exhilarating. And
I love that you said that they were on fire.
Oh, they were.
Because their biggest hit was Smoke on
Yeah. Oh, Smoke on the Water and Burn. Yes. Okay. No pun intended.
That was perfect. Well stated. Well stated.
And then looking on. Well, you know what? I'm looking at some of the other television credits and writing credits, but there was something else that that I saw a note of, which I actually saw last year. I don't know if you know that the clip is running around YouTube of the A Day in the Life, is it? From the Rolling Stone 10th anniversary special.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I've heard about that, yes.
Very interesting stuff. So, it was really an eclectic cast of characters in there.
It certainly was.
You kick that thing off. I can't remember who some of maybe the disco type people that were in that was, and then all of a sudden you're winding it up with Richie Havens, which was just it's very cool. I wish I could see and hear a pristine version of that, because it was very different. And once I was through it a little bit, I certainly remember watching it in 1977, because that's something that I would have marked my calendar for.
Yeah, right.
But very fun.
It was a celebration for Rolling
Stone's
magazine,
10th anniversary.
Yeah.
And they called it something about a day in the decade or something like that was the name, the theme of the 10 or 12 minute piece.
Yeah, it was something.
That was different Beatles songs strung along together.
And once again, we have the Beatles to thank for that, And then again, it's being in the right place at the right time and knowing people who were putting the piece together and the production staff and all that. And so, again, I guess I'm pretty much one of the luckiest guys alive, quite frankly, John.
All right. Blessed.
And I guess I should have asked you in the beginning of this, do you prefer being called Java or John?
I can take it either way. I've been John longer than I've been Java.
Great.
And when I quit mostly drinking coffee a couple of months back, I was afraid they were going to revoke my nickname. But luckily they're letting me keep it. So
that's good.
I'm happy about that. Then going on through the bio, I noticed you did a couple spots on the Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
And then it mentions that you were the composer-singer of the theme song for The Highway to Heaven.
Got a chance to work with
television.
A lot of wonderful people again.
Yes.
Luck's been a lady to me for a long time.
Yes. Unfortunately, I can't remember how that theme song goes.
Well, it was more a collaborative element with the whole piece, because my partner and I, who've been writing together for years, Gary Chase, we've been fortunate enough to be able to do music for a lot of films and television shows, and it's a situation where we were lucky enough to be involved, and whenever they needed different types of contemporary formed music, they would call us and ask us to create something. So in and out that piece for a long, long time, and a lot of the other shows that were out there too. But it never was something where it would say, original music, blah, 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 blah. And now it's just part of the score, part of what made the piece work.
Right.
We were so honored to be a part of that time, and as a result of that, we're able then to jump into doing the same thing with scoring films. So
nice.
Again, it all comes from hair, from being there and going from one to the next, and people saying, well, I guess, why don't we get those guys over here? And we always thought, well, I don't know why they're calling us, but let's don't tell them not to call us anymore. If they're foolish enough to call us, we'd be stupid not to say yes. So.
Beautiful. All right. I did want to touch one more time on the touring company of Jesus Christ Superstar. We are speaking with Ted NEELEY tonight, and Ted is out on the road. How long has this production been touring, Ted?
We started in 2006 with the idea of doing a 3-month tour, and here we are 3 years later still going on.
Wow.
It happens that way with Superstar. The last time I had the honor of doing it was in 92. Again, it was planned as a 3-month tour, and it ran for 5 years. So
and that
I don't know.
That was
as long as people are happy, we're happy.
Oh yeah, and that particular tour was with Carl Anderson.
Oh yeah,
and
wonderful late Carl Anderson was there, my Judas buddy.
Did you say late Carl Anderson?
Yes.
I didn't know we lost him.
I'm sorry to be the person to introduce you to that, but that's why he's not here now. This is the first time I've ever done this production without Carl's involvement. He was very much a part of it when we were putting it together, pre-production, and during that process, he found out that he had leukemia, and it was too far gone when he discovered, and it took him right out.
Oh, I'm sad to hear that.
I apologize for being the person to bear that bad news, but we are all at extreme loss for that. We miss him. I miss
Yes, I could see how. Let's dedicate this evening's interview to Carl.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. I know he's listening.
All right. Yes. Okay. I mentioned at the top of the program that you could find out more about Ted Neeley and the production of Jesus Christ Superstar and future productions on www. And of course, Neeley is spelled Neeley. And if you're local here, the performance at the King's Center in Melbourne is this coming Sunday, March 22nd. I think there's 2 performances, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. If you need information about that, you can look up www.kingcenter.com and find out pretty much all you need to know from either or both of those websites.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you jumping in and saying all of that, but please forgive me. I got to jump in and make a little tiny correction.
Yes.
It's the 29th, I believe.
Oh, you are right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. They already, if they're paying attention, they'll know that we've already passed the 22nd. Let's just say it's next Sunday.
And there you go.
The 29th. My bad on the typo.
That's okay.
Okay, well, thanks for pointing that out. But yes,
no
good. Okay, yeah, this coming Sunday, very good. And Ted Neeley will be in town, and as I mentioned, I know that the town is anxiously awaiting your arrival.
As am I. I'm looking forward to being there, boy. We sure appreciate the warm weather.
Yeah. Oh, good.
We've been in winter since last November.
Oh my gosh.
Everywhere we go. So.
Oh my gosh.
We're looking forward to that.
All right. Well, Ted Neeley, I want to thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
For spending time chatting with me tonight. You're a joy to talk with.
My pleasure.
And, you've inspired many, many people, and we appreciate that.
I hope I get to maybe see your face when we're there.
You might just. You might hope so. Yeah. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I would love it. Let's keep in touch on that old web thing.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Thank you.
And thanks a million for your interest, man.
Right on. Thank you.